Hey everybody, welcome back to the Combat Chain. Pat Shaw here with Adam Philipchuk as always, bringing you a new episode of the pod. Adam, how are we doing this fine Monday evening?
Hey Pat, we're doing great. We're on the eve of traveling for Pro Tour Lille.
Have you packed your bags? Have you? What's left to do?
We've got some bags to pack still. Our flights got changed last minute here. I think I must have been on the same flight as Flake. Flake, I saw posted on Twitter about it, that his flight got canceled as well. So we're traveling much later tomorrow than we initially anticipated. So we've bought some time. So today I can it's nice. I can focus on recording the episode tonight. Focus on a couple things tonight. We made sure our deck was in order today. And then tomorrow morning we can kind of snap pack some clothing and get the last couple things in order to get ready to go.
Excellent. Well, it's good that you're getting there early enough where you've got some lead time anyways. So no matter what kind of changes happen in the next couple of days, they shouldn't affect you too greatly by time round one starts.
Yeah, we've got some wiggle room, so that's good at least.
Excellent. Has your weekend been mostly focused on the travel? You were able to get any games in?
It's actually been probably focused more on testing than it should be. I've been trying to jam a lot of games and just trying to make sure the deck feels good, make sure we know our lines, and trying to just figure those last minute slots out. I think I've got it all locked in, but I'm trying to always be mindful of, is there anything else that could or should be considered?
Yep. Speaking of things that could be considered here, we had a calling happen this weekend in Singapore where the winner was none other than Prism, Sculptor of Light, getting her Living Legend points. Just kidding. It is Dash, Inventor Extraordinaire, won the Calling Singapore. Jason Zhang, to be specific, got first place in Calling Singapore with an aggro boost dash, which if I were putting money on who would win the Calling, I would not have put it on Dash. What say you?
Dash definitely wasn't on my list either. Definitely a dark horse. Makes sense though. Like, Dash, in my opinion, has been a viable nemesis in Blitz for the last while. The Teklo Pounder strategy is very potent, and this CC counterpart does exactly the same thing. It just slams down Teklo Pounders and tries to just jam as much damage as possible. We see that with Talishar. It's looking to end the game within 3 turns. And I'll tell you, I played into this deck already and had one turn it deal 27 damage to me off of double Teklo Pounder, and they finished everything off with a maximum velocity. So this deck is
finishing with the max V, huh?
Yeah. It was definitely spicy. It was one of those things where I was like, it kind of happened, and I was like, did that? No. And is this like, there was a moment of shock. So it's definitely a viable threat going into Pro Tour. Do I think it's as good as people are worried it is. I don't know. It's fatigable.
It is. It's very much. Yep.
Any deck that is semi able to fatigue, and anybody who knows what's up, anybody who's paying attention and goes, oh, this is like most decks can fatigue a boost dash, because it happens within a couple turns. Like it's not a crazy, like an all-out boost dash. It's not an all-out, like it doesn't go all these long turns. Like it's manageable within. It's been a while. Well, with that being said, I've never actually done this in CC because we've never seen all-out boost dash be in this. Well, anytime recently, but
this was like the first major appearance really of this kind of this deck build in Classic Constructed. I was doing a little digging after the calling results, and the winner Jason apparently did know some of the meta coming in there, and so boost dash was a very much a meta call. To that end, let's run down quickly the top 8 here in order from first to 8th. We had Jason Zhang on Dash Inventor Extraordinaire. We had Chan Nova Elemental, lovely name, on Briar Warden of Thorns. CYK Lionel on Viscerai Runeblood. Alan Lau, Briar Warden of Thorns. Pei Tung Liao on Briar. Ivan Tiao on Phi, Rising Rebellion. Pankage, I'm going to butcher this one. Pankage Bao Jwani on Icelander Stormbind, and Qi Xing Sang on Briar Warden of Thorns.
I was just going to say, I think you did a phenomenal job there. I don't have the names right in front of me, but from here it sounded good. You did it confidently.
I appreciate it. Let's see if they're right. But we do have, so we got 1 dash. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 Briars, 1 Viscerai, a Phi, and an Icelander showing up in the top 8. We do have a meta breakdown to go with that. The most represented hero at the Calling Singapore, Viscerai Runeblood at 42 Viscerais being played. Second most is Phi Rising Rebellion at 29, followed by Briar and Prism, both tied at 27 apiece. And then a steep drop-off afterwards. Bravo Showstopper at 19, Lexi Livewire 16, Dorinthia Ironsong 14, Dash 12, Icelander 11, Reinar 10, Katsu 10, Dromai 9, Kano 7, Oldhams 4, Lavia 3, Azalea 2, Sir Bolton also 2, tied for last with Azalea. So we do see that Viscerai, Phi, Briar, and Prism made up a huge chunk of the meta coming in there. Very aggressive, skewed, which I believe led Jason to his pick. And correct, right? Looked like he was able to dodge the fatigue matchups. He did well in draft, and has a calling win to show for it.
Did he dodge the fatigue matchups, or were there just nobody playing fatigue?
Well, I mean, there was 19 for, there's 23 Guardians there. I don't know his round for round lineup, but and as you said, like most others, a lot of the decks are fatigable, right? So, or can go to fatigue. Prism can likely fatigue Dash pretty easily too if it's configured right.
Oh, for sure. I do wonder if him going with this all out, because this was the first time we saw Talishar Dash in CC, and I wonder if he got the element to surprise, and some decks thought they could race him in certain situations, and he knew what he was doing and was able to outplay that. Yep. I do agree that, like, his strategy is beatable, a lot of different ways. Like, I mean, Viserai alone can outrace it if the Viserai knows what they're doing and has the right draws.
Yep.
The one thing I will say about this dash, this particular spice of dash, is it's fairly consistent.
Yes.
And if it, if you can get, well, I mean, you start with the first Tekla pounder, and then if you can get, a second Tekla pounder down early, it's not hard to deal like even 15 damage off of a 2-card hand.
Yeah, definitely. Especially if you have one of those hands where you have a throttle and you can break Goliath Gauntlet and start with you get the +6 off of throttle boost go again. It's a tough way to start a turn for your opponent.
Oh, for sure.
And they have to respect it when the pounders are out. They do have to respect a 2 and 3 card hand. Dash has the ability to block and still deal just a stupid amount of damage.
Yeah, exactly. So like it's, if you have a ton of on hits and you're just constantly drawing blocks, you might be able to draw enough blocks to slow it down. But if you're just threatening maybe one on hit per turn and, just like the average.
Yeah, I get you. If you're just coming in with, good old fashioned fair flesh and blood, then it can definitely just it can hold its own and clap back super hard.
Yeah, exactly.
But speaking of spicy stuff with a ton of on hits, outside of the rune blades, which I think we all know at this point are pretty good, we have a notable Phi Rising Rebellion list that has been taking the scene by storm ever since it showed up as listed on the top 8. I do not believe it was actually shown any time during the stream. But what makes this such a notable list, I think the thing that sticks out the most is the 9 even bigger than that are being run in the main board for this list by Ivan Tao.
Yeah, and I got a chance to run a few rounds on this list already, and the amount of EBTTs in the list, it's noticeable, but it's kind of like it's nice. You're pretty much every turn you're able to go Kodachi, EBTT, opt whatever, do your thing, and then go from there, draw a card. Like, it has a lot of gas.
It does. There's a lot of gas. There's a lot of on hits. There's on hit and draconic on hits. You have Engulfing Flame Wave, Mounting Anger, Rising Resentment, Soaring Strike, as well as classic snatches, and also the new Take the Tempos. There is a ton of things to do on the deck here, and it's running Kodachis and not Searing Emberblade. So you have 0 cost blue pitches. You have some very unconventional cards in the blue slot that you might not expect to see, but some of the glue that holds this deck together and kind of methods to the madness. You have its blues, for instance, are Soulbeat Strike, blue, Fine Center, blue Snatch. What? Who runs blue Snatch outside of Benji? Blue Flusterfist and Winds of Eternity. Now, Winds of Eternity with no 100 wins, Fine Center without the combo pieces here. At first glance, it brought a lot of questions about, like, okay, why aren't you just running a Draconic 3-block? Why aren't you just this? Why aren't you just that? But running the 9 even bigger than that, so you'll note that all those blues are 2 attacks. So you cannot miss if you reveal one on an even bigger than that, if you hit with Kodachi for 1.
In between the not being able to miss on the EBTTs, and on top of that, they're all 3 blocks. I believe they're all 3 blocks.
Yes, except for Snatch. Yep, they're all 3.
Right, except for Snatch.
Yeah, the Draconic Ninja cards end up being one attacks that block for two and just don't fit very well in there. Some people were asking like, why not put Lava Vein Loyalty in there? But as something we might even touch on later in this episode, it just doesn't jive here. This is really about good stuff, being aggressive and getting on hits and drawing cards. So everything from the ancestral empowerments to even bigger than that, triggering Mask Momentum, all of these things are pretty powerful effects. And yeah, I mean, I definitely picked up the deck myself and ran it through its paces a few times, and I am thoroughly impressed with it. So I just before we recorded, finished putting the sleeves on to play it in paper. So very, very enticing and very a fascinating deck coming out of there. And of course, the 7th place Icelander deck. Icelander's making seems to be making her way up the rankings here in both CC and Blitz. She's turned into the big bad in the 40 card format. But she is showing up pretty strong here in the calling, and in fact won the Battle Hardened on the following day, Sunday, in Singapore. Icelander piloted by got 7th place with Pankaj Baujwani, and got 1st place in the Battle Hardened piloted by Chanon Puderi. Getting 1st place on Icelander. But yeah, it's interesting to see. I think Icelander's been kind of, I think at least in CC, kind of maybe thought less of, maybe kind of B-ish tier. So to see her make an appearance in a top 8 and obviously win a constructed tournament speaks to kind of her evolution here.
Yeah, and I think Icelander kind of suffered from the same thing Kano did, where people thought Kano to be unplayable in CC, and then he, though needing the right tools, crept his way into CC until a point where he took the meta by storm when no one expected it. Icelander, I think, is poised to do the same thing. You know, her ability makes her really strong in Blitz, and we've seen her dominate Blitz already. But yeah, so far in CC, I think people have been kind of shrugging her off, I guess. And I definitely have felt that she's a puzzle to be solved, and there's definitely something there. I think I think it just comes down to like finding the right combination of tools in the toolbox for whatever you need to do to win the match. And we're starting to see that people are figuring that out now. Is it in time for it to take Pro Tour by storm? It's going to be tough to say. Do we maybe see more people try to bring, like, the meta share now of Icelander at Pro Tour certainly could be a little higher than it would have been prior to Singapore. But my gut tells me Icelander doesn't like storm the meta and take over top 8 or anything like that.
I agree. I do think if Phi wasn't already the second most represented deck, I do think that its appearance in the top 8 would be the catalyst for making it so. But I do predict a very similar breakdown in heroes as we're seeing in Pro Tour. Maybe a couple more niche meta calls, given the kind of a smaller pool. I know as of like a couple weeks ago, there was a lot of talk of Bravo Showstopper and Oldham Grandfather of Eternity being kind of picks to disrupt the aggressive meta, and as we see in the thing that is missing in the top 8 in both the calling and the Battle Hardened. So after Icelander won 1st place in the Battle Hardened, 2nd goes to Oldham Grandfather of Eternity, 3rd is Briar, 4th is Lexi, 5th is Katsu. And then 6th through 8th is Briar, followed by Viscera in the top 8. No Prisms. And that doesn't necessarily mean that Prism was, maybe it was a force and constructed, but one of the caveats of these mixed formats is perhaps the Prism players got a little on the wrong side of the draft portion, and thus maybe their CC records were very good and had potential, and maybe there was a constructed Prism deck out there that could beat everybody, but unfortunately, because of potentially draft results, couldn't quite make it to the top 8 there.
Or maybe also, now that Starvo's out of the meta, we're seeing a deck that Prism could jive with get pushed out for more aggro decks that are, I do think, to some extent, making it harder for Prism. Like, I don't think this meta is as favorable for Prism as it was when we had Starvo running rampant in reality.
No, I think you're right. I think it is as much as, as close as Prism is to Living Legend, and we still have we have Pro Tour Lille that will have a calling and a Battle Hardened. So there's still time here, but there's a very real possibility that Prism is around after the Pro Tour because she has not got the Living Legend points. This is just not the meta for her.
I'm starting to feel that way. I think we're going to see actually, and if that's the case, we might see Prism be around a little bit longer than people want her to be around.
Yeah, there's definitely been like a buildup in the drama of getting Prism to 1,000 points. And I think that the tension of drama is starting to pour into a bit of frustration now that it's not happening. I know I'm certainly pointing fingers at the people that claim to have took the dive in the top match of a ProQuest or a RTN for the purposes of saving her. Now it's coming back to their plans have come to fruition, and now I'm just scolding those people. Just let her die.
I mean, she does do some important gatekeeping. That is the reality. She keeps the Guardians at bay, and we don't want Guardian Winter, let's be honest.
It is, right? I think that's the fear, right? Once she's gone, it's going to be spinals and pummels all over the place, a couple frostbites here and there, and a crippling sprinkled on everything else, disrupting all of our too blocky aggressive cards.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess the devil we know versus the devil we don't, right?
So what do you think Prism needs to do in order to adapt and become a top deck here? Is there something that she can do?
Ooh, that's, I mean,
and I'm gonna say no offense to the Prism waifus that are like, what do you mean she's not a top deck? She's always gonna be S tier until she's gone.
I don't think she's S tier right now is the reality. She is like, she's right below it. Like, she's still a strong deck, don't get me wrong. She's just not, like, it's not so much that she's not there anymore. It's that the conditions moved away of what works, what's favorable for her. Like, the meta right now is an aggro show like no other. Like, that's the reality. We've got Phi, we've got Viscera, and even like we've got things like what people are calling aggro Bravo, which aggro Bravo is really more of a tempo mid-range Bravo, but still
it's mid, just it's putting the gear into third and being like, oh boy, howdy, we're really moving now. We're going almost to the speed limit. This is great. Ooh, I can feel the wind in my hair. That is that's Bravo as an old person driving the highway in the middle lane, but at the speed limit. So it's super frustrating to be behind him, but he's like, "Oh man, I'm really putting the pedal to the metal here. This is exciting. I haven't seen this far up the odometer since I was a teenager. This is exciting stuff." Meanwhile, there's just horns just behind him. Just, go to the right lane. That is Bravo's aggressive form right there. Sometimes he can hit for 15, and that's big.
But the reality, though, is he's got the on hits, and that's what gets him. That's what gets him there.
Absolutely.
It's these big on hit effects with like these big amounts of damage where you and sometimes like the dominate on a stick on top of that, like that equips Bravo like no other deck to just really drive damage and drive crippling punishing effects.
Yeah, and Bravo in particular is very well suited to that right mid-game, early mid-game crush effect disruption. We're looking at cripplings, right? And multiple cripplings, multiple spinals. And now they've even teched, like if Phi and such becomes popular, they've got Crush the Week's red that they've been putting in. And they still have all their defensive reactions on top of that. They do have a card. I feel like it's been being slept on, even though that, like Bravo has been running it for a while now, but Imposing Visage is just a beast of a card, and I don't think anyone really respects it until Bravo goes first in a game, and Imposing Visages fetches a Showtime, which goes into the battlefield without using an action point, trigger Showtime, get a card such as Crippling or Pulverize, and then either you can follow that up, depending on what you got, with a swing from Anathos just to clear things out, or you can heave your Pulverize if you so chose. But you're going to start your next turn, barring an Act of God, with a 6-card hand, because you're going to Arsenal, draw 4, and then Showtime's going to trigger on the beginning of your next turn and give you your 6th card. And that is like, that's not great for your opponent if I'm facing down Bravo in either format, right? And they do that, I'm lucky. I'm looking to put my brown pants on.
Yeah, like that's equivalent to your, Viscera going turn 1 and setting up with a bunch of, 10 plus rune chants or something like that. Yeah,
right. The Mordred read the runes, Arsenal pass. Like, oh crap.
So, yeah, no, Bravo's got the... I always sweat when I play into Bravo, because it's like, do I go first and let them have the turn 2 dominate, or do I go second and let them have the turn 1 dominate? Like, there's...
Oh, terrible. The first turn dominate is such a killer. I can't. I will always, if I'm facing a Bravo, one of my things is I'll always go first, even though I'm usually on a tempo deck. But it is right. Bravo is so hard to play around. Bravo and like Azalea, believe it or not, are kind of similar to me as an aggressive deck, where you really can't block around the not hitting. Right, the cards will hit, but you can avoid and play around the crush effect, but you can't play around an 11, right? 11 with a potential of +4 to 15. You're not blocking 15. That's for sure.
Well, and on top of that, like, usually to, stop something like a dominated crippling crush, you're using your equipment. You only get one shot at that.
Yep. You only get one good one. It's gotten so to the point, at least in my, it started with Katsu, but coming into Phi now, what I've done against Bravos is kind of desensitize myself a little bit to, what is a quote unquote on hit, right? We always want to block the on hits, but sometimes you can't. I look at something like a righteous cleansing that is somewhat popular in Bravo lists. Is that a powerful effect? Yes. If the crush happens, can they take something great out of my deck? Yes. Are they going to take my win con out? No. So at the end of the day, righteous cleansing is for me more psychological damage than an on hit. So not really worth blocking for me. But I look at crippling crush. Right. If you can't play around the pummel and you know that something like that's coming, crippling to the face is usually actually probably the best option. Leaving 2 cards and taking your chances, especially if you have a card in arsenal. And this is like specifically as a ninja that can't block for shit anyway. So like maybe you got the defense reaction in arsenal, and you can stop things. But if you can't, you got something good in arsenal. You got 4 good cards. You can lose 2, take 11. It's actually, when you say it like that, like 11 damage isn't that much when you're used to going 15-20 on the clapback. This is ninja talk. Just ninjas. Hey ninjas. Just take the crippling crush. You're better off for it. It's not worth blocking. It's not worth blocking. It hurts too much to block crippling crush. Just take it. Take it to the face. I call it a face tank.
Blocking with the face. I like it.
Yep.
But you're 100% right. Like sometimes you look at your hand and you go, well, maybe if I block with, it's dominated. If I block with 1 card, then I lose 3 cards. If I block with no cards, assuming you can take the hit. If I block with no cards, and save 2 to at least do something, that usually gets you in a better place. Because the reality is Guardians have big on hits and big attacks, but they don't usually have great follow-ups. Like the world of the back-to-back cripplings or the back-to-back spinals or something like that are few and far between.
Yep, for sure. Moving on, we do have there was also a battle hardened that took place in Baltimore, that was a blitz battle hardened, and we'll quickly run through the top 8 there. It was won by Anthony Nguyen piloting Oldham, so congratulations to him. Second place, friend of the channel, Jack Stoney, second place on Ira Crimson Haze. So congratulations to Jack, taking that. Third place was Sherman Darenkamp on Dorinthia. Fourth place was also Dorinthia. Fifth, Briar. Sixth, Phi. Seventh, Icelander. And eighth, Chain. What I like about this, in Blitz, top 8, 1, 2, 7 different heroes. Oldham, Ira, Dorinthia, Briar, Phi, Icelander, Chain. Oldham, Ira, Icelander, Dorinthia, not the most aggressive decks in the world. I'm assuming the Iras that I have seen lately are more of they've gone back to kind of a controlled turtle shell, because of the prevalence of the other ninja, right? Phi, Briar, and Chain are all very aggressive decks, but that turtle shell, the controlling way of doing things, is back in vogue and is showing that it can work again. But a nice varied, right, diverse meta in Blitz. That's what we like to see here.
Yeah, it's really good to see.
I should check to see. I wonder if I can. Oldham's got to be getting up there in Blitz Living Legend points. As of the Battle Hardened Toronto, so we do have a month here. We have all skirmish season that has not been tallied up as far as I'm aware of. At least on the main site here, as of July 25th, Oldham had 366 points. Which means we might be looking at on August 30th is the next scheduled banned and suspended announcement that would also be a Living Legend announcement. We quite possibly could see Oldham coming to a retirement here in Blitz. So that'll be interesting to see. Second place is Ira at 286. I don't think we have to worry about Ira getting Living Legend anytime soon. But so next in line are, after Oldham, Ira, Dorinthia, Kano, and then Kasai, rounding up the top 5 here of active heroes. And this is as of July 25th. So now, before I saw the July 25th, I was like, oh, 366. Now that I realize there's a whole skirmish season to tally here, it'll be very interesting to see how that works out. And I think that does it for the news. So coming off of that, what we were talking about calling Singapore, today's main topic, I'd like to talk a little bit about deck choice when coming into a big event. That's kind of what I want to hone in here tonight. So basically, I want to kind of break down how one picks the 80 cards and decides to show up to, in this case, Pro Tour Lille, right? Or, U.S. Nationals, or, insert calling Pro Tour event coming up. So I think the first thing that one has to look at here is finding the deck that really kind of speaks to you, right? What hero do you connect with? I think that forms the kind of the foundation of successful piloting here. There's always going to be those who are, Bolton aficionados after so long, or these has-been Levia players that just can't keep trying to make her work. But there does seem there's a lot of viable heroes in Flesh and Blood, but you got to find the one that does kind of speak to you the most. Adam, in your career so far, what heroes have spoken to you the most, that you've connected with?
For me, it's been Ninja, Illusionist, and Runeblade.
What about them makes them decks that you prefer to pilot over others?
I think in a lot of ways they all share the same idea, that they look to go wide and kind of overwhelm their opponent's hand. And they do it in different ways, and Illusionist does it via board state, Ninja does it via on hit triggers, and Runeblade via split damage, and a mix of non-attack actions and attack actions to generate advantages for the deck.
I have been, since I started Flesh and Blood, I've started I've been very fond of ninjas. First, I fell in love with Levia. Believe it or not, I was a Levia main for about 3 months of my Flesh and Blood life, and I almost quit the game because of it. It was terrible. But after I got over Levia, I found Katsu, right? And Katsu was just a revelation for me. Not only could I get aggressive, but I could get tricky. And I think I was able to kind of get some parallels. So I played some Magic. I was pretty competitive. Not successfully, but I like to compete in Magic Gathering a lot. One of my favorite cards is a card called Collected Company. It's pretty popular, especially in Pioneer right now, but especially in its time in Standard. It was a great card. As an instant, you could look at the top, I think it's like 6 cards of your deck, and you can pick 2 cards, 2 creatures that were converted mana cost 3 or less, and put them into play. Right, that was the trick. Right, look at the top, look in your deck, find 2 cards, slap them down without paying their costs. Usually you would do that something like at the end of your opponent's turn, so they came in ready to attack, and then you set yourself up for a big turn. But you got tricky, and you were able to stay aggressive, and that ended up being kind of like my niche. So basically, no matter where I've gone, I've looked for the aggressive deck with a trick to kind of top it off. And I think part of the problem with Levia for me is that there wasn't much of a trick. It was just aggression, and then I killed myself with Blood Debt. So wasn't wasn't too much to write home about there. But coming into finding Katsu, yes, 100%. And I think that kind of started my journey there to find aggressive decks with tricks. And I too fell in love with some rune blades. I found Briar from Tails. I piloted Viscerai during the Skeleton days, right? We're talking about aggression and tricks, right? Briar with Channel Mount Heroic has the same thing. Viscerai, Mordred Tide, Skeleta, Rattlebones, right? That my favorite types of plays at that point were, right, breaking Skeleta at instant speed, a Rattlebones for free. That's something unexpected. You can get janky lines that other people wouldn't expect. Going there, and most recently, I've enjoyed Fi. Fi, for the short time though, it didn't really have much of a trick to him. It was very much make the combat chain as long as possible, add your multipliers, and see how quickly you can go home. But as we've seen, as recently as the Calling Singapore, Fi picked up some tricks, so I'm right back into it. Okay, so after we found a deck that has spoken to us, I think the next step is kind of viability, right? Does this deck work? Not every meta not every meta is appropriate for our favorite deck. So what are one of the main things that you would check for to see if your preferred deck is viable in a particular meta?
I mean, the first place I'm checking is major tournament results to see kind of what the meta looks like and see if my particular strategy jives with the meta, if it's viable within whatever is going on in that meta.
Yeah. So I feel like, usually that takes a few, not just results, right? But even before then, there's a lot of testing that goes on to kind of judge it, right? If we have a deck that we know or feel that it's good, kind of goes through a bit of a process there. I know coming into Everfest, I know myself and a few of my cohorts were super excited about the Katsu cards that came with it. And so for most of February, we were on Katsu hard, right? We were like even bigger than that. It's great. Everyone's going like Oldham just messes your whole day up. You can't even Kadachi off of Oldham, so why are you even running even bigger than that? But like, no, we promise it works. It's really, really good. They got these cards for it, and it's going to be really, really great. About 3 weeks into that, just before ProQuest Season 1, I believe it was, or maybe even going into ProQuest Season 1, turns out Katsu sucked, right? It just wasn't happening. My testing, I think I faced a Prism in testing, and it was Aura Prism, but I ended the game down 38-0, something ridiculous like that. It just wasn't happening. It couldn't block Erudition, couldn't stop auras, couldn't pop auras fast enough to maintain tempo, and we had to abandon ship. And I ended up on Viscerai after like just days of silent contemplation, not even wanting to play any Flesh and Blood, and then coming out just trying a few things, and then I popped Skeleta for the first time, and I was like, okay, all right, I can play this game again. This is great.
I mean, I've definitely had moments where, like, even going into this pro tour, there was that inclination in the back of my mind that, like, what if we were to try to run Icelander? Can we run Icelander? And up until a couple or maybe a week ago, we were actively toying with that idea, but we hadn't hard committed to it. Ultimately, we've decided it's for the best that we don't do that. But there's definitely been some toying with decks up until close to the end, and not being locked into our strategy right away. Like
using for me, my most recent example being actually Phi post ban, right? You bring up asking the question, right? Can my deck do X, right? Have you how far do you think experimentation goes into that kind of process here, where you're asking a very specific question to get a very specific result of a deck, and seeing if that result equals into either a win or a change in perspective when it comes to a deck? Have you been able to so right when Phi came out, when the Stubby Hammers band came out, my question was, right, is Phi still good? Right, what can we do with Phi before what can we do with Phi after Stubbies is gone, right? So like going into testing there, right, I set up like 3 different scenarios, and I call them, right, the sky is falling. When Stubby Hammers was banned, right, the sky was falling on Phi players is what I called it. So I just kind of ran with it a bit. So I ended up creating 3 different variants of a deck for Phi. One was called The Sky Is Not Falling. What was that? It was everything that made the Stubby Hammers list good minus the Stubby Hammers, and to see how that ran. And that for me, that was like head jab dot deck, and it wasn't very exciting for me because, like I said, there wasn't tricks to it. So I think even in the beginning of Phi, before the Zoomer build there, I was very much a Mask Momentum Tiger Stripe kind of guy trying to make that work. So we had The Sky's Not Falling, right? Everything's fine, everything's normal. Find your Spreading Flames, find your Art of War, and get your big turn off. Still try to pop off and see what happens. And then I had The Sky's Kind of Falling. Right? Maybe something is amiss in the world of Phi, but I still want to maintain the core plan. So what do? We acknowledge that there's a bunch of weaknesses there, and perhaps shore them up a little bit. And I think the big thing there was adding, for that variant, we added, I think, just simply snatches and then sink belows, right? I think that was basically it. Why sink belows? Because we couldn't block for shit, right? So Bravo killed us, and we were running out of things to do there, and snatch represented, right, something different, and on hit, right, which kind of sparked an even bigger idea there, which led us to the third variant, which was The Sky is what did I call it? The Sky's Falling, right? Completely different perspective, right? The Phi that we know it is dead. We have to start from scratch. And what does scratch look like from there? And to me, it looked like relevant on hits and big cards that did things a little differently. I wasn't a big fan of, right, head jab dot deck, so I ended up throwing in everything, I think, from like a Scar for Scars, Ravenous Rabbles, and the snatches to take the tempos. And eventually at some point even got the E-strikes in there, but it was, can we do things a little differently with Phi? This guy from the list from Calling Singapore here is basically like, it's like 250 games of testing into I think that kind of evolution of the deck. So I feel like I'm kind of happy to see this deck succeed, because I do feel like I was kind of thinking towards it. But to that end, right, we try to, and I think Phi, for me, if I was going into Pro Tour Lille right now, it would be Phi. I think I can pilot it the best, and I think worked on it hard enough to know that it's it's not perfect, but it has enough good matchups for me to feel confident in a long day, or a long weekend rather, of tournament play.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, I'm not going to say exactly what I'm on because,
Mhm.
mind you, by the time this airs, we're
Your enemies are listening, so yeah, we don't want to.
Oh, I was gonna say by the time
Everyone.
this airs, like the reality is it's probably too late for anybody to.
Yeah. That's the feather in the cap, right? Though they're like, Adam's coming. We got to tech against Adam. Like, oh, all right, yeah, let's tech against me. I'm a big effing deal.
I don't. I have a hard time thinking anybody's teching against me for Pro Tour.
You never know. I'm constantly teching against you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Every deck I got, it's anti-Adam. But yeah,
Huh?
without giving much away here, I'm just curious. I guess to approach it a different way here, you have your deck core philosophy, right, and hero here, and there's a testing process that goes into honing that list, right? I guess, tell me a little bit about your philosophy as you test to get to your 80 cards here.
I mean, for me, it's to look at what are the hard matchups. Where do I need the help to help me overcome rough matchups?
Well, let's say, all right, let's walk it back a bit here. If you're taking your deck, are you looking for more of like a flexible game plan, or do you feel like you're best served with one solid executable game plan that needs somewhat support, or are you more of a, I want to be able to transform into something different depending on the matchup?
I mean, I do want some. I for sure want some amount of flexibility. Being able to, and I think that's the beauty of CC, even, is being able to tailor your deck to each matchup is a huge advantage versus just being stuck with whatever you put in your deck. That's it. That's all you've got.
Is there a certain spot where you feel like, right? We talked about that. Maybe you got to a point where you're like, yes, this is it. Is there a particular moment there, or are you looking at like a body of work over time where your data says that this is the deck for you, or is there a moment where you are like, yes, this is my deck, this is my spear coming into the hills of France? Does France have hills? Is it a hilly?
Yeah, there is some.
Right, yes. Yep. All right.
There's some mountains and such and whatnot in France.
All right. Yes. So you're taking your spear, your metaphorical spear in 80 card constructed deck into France. Yeah. Which way does it usually flow for you? Are you more of a like kind of data driven? I've tested 200 games and my percentage win rates are X, Y, and Z, and thus this is my deck here? Or is it more of a feel where you hit the eureka moment and go, yeah, man, this is the sauce?
I've always imagined that I'd be like data. I mean, I'm in a lot of ways I'm still new to this process in the grand scheme of things. I've like playing competitively at this level is, this is my second Pro Tour.
Mm-hmm.
And
hey man, that is a shit ton of experience. Let me tell you, that is much more. You know what this guy has? 0 Pro Tours. You have, you break space and time trying to multiply that. You can't multiply by 0. It just ends up poorly. You've two, you're about to embark on your second pro tour. That is some serious experience, brother.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, like there was a lot of learning that came off of the first pro tour, and it's funny because like even based off the learning off of the first pro tour, do we feel like we've made the strides we hope to have made by this point? By no means, but we're making strides, and that's what counts. What I was gonna say is, like, you say you don't have any pro tours under your belt, like that's I hear your point, but you have years and years of TCG background that I don't have, and that counts for something as well. So just where, if we're to talk about my eureka moment though, or where it kind of locked in for me, I think it kind of came down to when the deck started feeling good, and there was a kind of moment where we made some tweaks, and I can't even tell you exactly all the tweaks we made in that moment. It was kind of just like an absent-minded, this doesn't feel right, we're just gonna try this and this, and then all of a sudden it just started feeling a lot better. And that was actually probably only about a week and a half ago, maybe less than that even. And all of a sudden it was like jamming games. Yeah, this feels good. And the win rate was coming up, and we're like, okay, now at this point, I think we've got something we can work on, and like we can take into the tourney. Yeah. And even like in like diverse matchups, like the sideboarding felt easy. Like the 80 card shell seems to support different matchups, and that's kind of where I was like, yeah, I think maybe we've got what we need here to hopefully post some form of a result.
So speaking of 80 cards in sideboarding, are you more of a do you have a 60 card deck with a X card sideboard, or are you I have a shell, I have a 45 card shell, and I will bring in cards for a certain matchup kind of
guy? Yeah, we're kind of operating on a shell right now where we are, it's probably a 40 or a 55 card shell where we're juggling some cards for key matchups.
I've found, especially lately, that seems to be the best for myself as well. Call it 40 plus card core deck, and not having to worry about removing cards one for one, but knowing that you'll always have these cards with you, and to say, for this matchup, I'm going to put in these 6 to 12 cards, whatever it may be. And your sideboard actually looks like, I think at one point, again with the file list that I was working on, I think I had at one point a 27 card sideboard. I think it ended up being, which is like a ridiculously large number, but after a while, one of the things is I realized I kept throwing in the same cards. There was like 3 cards I just kept throwing in to every matchup, and I was like, oh yeah, I separated these out I thought I was going to use them for something else, and then they just kept coming in. So my core did get bigger, if not just by three or so cards. But
yeah, and I think sometimes people get caught up on like there's so many tech cards that are coming in and out, and the reality at the end of the day is, no, that card's just a main deck card.
Yeah, I think a lot of that has to do with so I had asked you about kind of a eureka moment, and there was one night of testing that was getting super frustrating, and it was with West Coast veteran Nathan Fortin, who Is he going to Lille?
Yeah, he's going to be there.
Okay, excellent. So putting in a lot of games against him and getting kind of just wrecked, and getting a little demoralized while trying to evolve this FI list. And actually, one of the eureka moment for me came after losing pretty soundly to his deck there. Did I say what it was? It was not. If you see it in editing, just cut out what it was. But Nate and I were playing hard most of the night, and at the end, we actually started just talking about my deck. Right, he had noticed some things, and we were talking out what was kind of like pros and cons of my deck choices, my card choices in the deck, etc. And we actually had kind of a moment. My moment was that Lava Vein Loyalty for me is a terrible card. I had not removed Lava Vein Loyalty out of the deck yet, and it was causing all sorts of issues because it just wasn't on a huge draconic chain, and it was clogging my deck up. It was forcing me to make some really suboptimal plays, and removing that card was one of the catalysts for getting that deck into a smooth spot where I went, ooh, right, this feels good now. And he had recommended putting in some just good. It was actually Flame Call Awakening that we put in, but it started a bigger chain where I changed 18, 20-ish cards to kind of fit a more aggressive synergistic theme, and it really set it off to where it is. Well, where it was until the Calling Singapore. Now I'll say my deck is very similar to what was at the Calling Singapore, because it was kind of like you said, it's like 250 games of testing into where I felt like I was going. So now I'm on 9 EBTTs as well. But so you are as of right now, you're locked in. You feel good.
I think so. I mean, Nathan and I were jamming some games today, and the deck felt really strong. We seem to be getting our wins across a myriad of fields. So I think, I mean, at this point, like at some point, you just have to commit, right? And I think. Right. I think we're past that point now where we can really make changes. And of all the ways it could go, I think I feel better than I thought I would feel at this point. So I'm fairly confident. I mean, there's also the draft portion though, and I think that helps as well. The thought that I only have to rely on the deck I'm bringing with me to some extent. My draft prowess and the deck I'm able to build through that and pilot through that are also going to help get me there, hopefully. So between the two of those things, yeah, we're feeling okay. We're hopeful.
Excellent. Now, last question. Did you take out all your foils?
It's funny that you asked this. Yes, I actually did today. In my deck, I had some copies of some. I'm trying to so into these questions. The reason I've been struggling with some of these questions is I don't want to give anything away.
Yeah. Yes, we're trying to inform the audience while not just dumping all the testing work out of that, but I still want to give something productive to that, which is also why we're using my FI as an example, because now it's moot, because it is the secret's out, and it wasn't through me, and I'm not taking credit for the calling by any means, but my deck is now that deck, so I can talk about where I was before then, but that evolution, that eureka moment happened while I was reading somebody else's list to to get it to where it is. And look, folks, it's insane. I'm just going to say it right now. It's an insane list. If you can get it going, it is just the nuttiest of just nuts. It just does weird, crazy things. It is... Fi is objectively a better ninja than Katsu. Katsu combo is better. Fi is a better ninja. Just saying it. Just putting it out there.
Yeah, I could be inclined to agree with that at this point. Like, Fi is doing certain ninja things better than Katsu's doing them right now.
Yep, I agree. So watch out for Fi's. Watch out for dashes. The meta seems to shift towards the flavor of the week or the month. So I expect to see kind of a shift in representation there. And it takes kind of a... Right, it takes a good Guardian player to show up and do some real damage. Not that it's the Pro Tour. Everyone's going to be really, really good there. But I don't think it's in people's best interest to kind of like anti-meta into something they're maybe not comfortable with. But who knows? Maybe I'm talking out of my head.
And I think as a fundamental for this Pro Tour, like playing what you know is very important.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. All right, Adam. You've stuck through. You've stuck with me. I appreciate it. I want to wish you the best of luck in the safest of travels, and I will be watching from afar and hope to catch you on a stream here.
Yeah, it'd be pretty cool to end up on one of the big streams. Haven't had that opportunity yet, so fingers crossed. But just the opportunity to be there and to participate in the Pro Tour in literally one of my favorite places in the world, like that on its own is pretty special to me.
And I hope you get a chance to enjoy the country outside of playing the game here. So make sure you take that time.
Yeah, well, we're certainly going to try to.
Excellent. All right. I will not hold you up any longer here. So thank you, everybody, for joining us on this episode. You can find us on YouTube at The Combat Chain podcast. You can stream us audio wherever you stream your podcasts, be that Spotify, iTunes, etc. And on social media, you can find The Combat Chain on Twitter at The Combat Chain. You can find myself at Pat Smashgood, and you can find Adam at Pro Tour Lille, but also at Tom Toolery TCG. And I think
as a little bonus tidbit, if you're listening to this and you happen to be in Lille or in,
I completely forgot about this. I'm a terrible co-host.
Yeah, we're doing a little giveaway. If you're there and you see me, come say hi. I'm giving away Herald promos, and the only catch is you have to ask for one in French.
Now, does it have to be, please, sir, may I have an Herald of Rebirth, or can it be something simpler here? What's the minimum here?
Just some like broken, like I'm not picky.
All right. Can you give us a little example of something that would be good? Can you tell me to give me this trading card, you swine? Can you? What is that in French?
Give me this trading card, you swine. Donnez-moi cette carte, vous cochon. There you go. Just like a simple, like I don't know, like est-ce que je peux avoir une carte or something like that? Can I just have a card? Like I'm struggling on a translation for like exactly the perfect way to say it, but just like please, can I have a promo? Est-ce que je peux avoir une carte, s'il vous plaît? Or promo, s'il vous plaît? I don't know, something like that.
There it is. All right. Now, I'm not gonna repeat that. So if you are there was a couple there at the end. If you want some promos, I'd probably go towards that end of the phrases as opposed to towards the beginning. But you have it there. So Herald of Rebirth asking Adam.
Yeah, and I mean you're in France. Be resourceful. Like ask the locals. Like, hey, can you help me translate this? I mean, I don't know. Like. Maybe don't ask the locals. You'll get heckled. I don't know. Find out.
Take my camera. Take a picture, please.
My point is, there are ways to like translate this. There's ways to figure it out. Google Translate, even like.
Absolutely. Excellent. Well, yep, you can catch Herald of Rebirth extended art promos with Adam in France, and yeah, I think that is going to do it. So it is time, Adam, to get your poop in a group, keep your fecal collegial, and until next week, we're closing the combat chain.
Fecal collequel.
Yeah. I was thinking about that one for a bit today.
That's good. That's good.